episode. I'm your host, Isaiah. And today we have a jewel passing through my hands that needs some final assembly. So we're going to knock that out. We have a customer's engine here. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to pretty much assemble everything on it except the piston and rods have already been done. We have ARP main bolts and head bolts. Main's already in. I have the head bolts. We're going to knock that stuff out in general. And I'm going to turn this engine over because this engine was actually put together, machined by CW Pence. And they're, well known for these engines. And we have here forged pistons. These are 8-to-1 compression ratio pistons with H-beam connecting rods. Now, let me turn this motor over so you guys can see the rods. Okay. Now, this crankshaft is standard, not oversized or anything like that. And as you can see here, these are the Chinese connecting rods with Seiko pistons, 8-to-1, ARP everything. So he's basically going to be the first person to test these out, at least to my knowledge. I could be wrong, but I'm also going for a similar build. So basically, since the bottom end is already complete, we are going to have to modify the pickup tube setup. If you're familiar with these engines, the pickup tube goes on these two caps, and because he has ARP, it is no longer the standard 10mm bolt that you take off and bolt on the pickup tube. So there's a lot of modification that has to take place. So we're going to get to that, not in this episode, but when we get to it, we're definitely going to get to that. Because the turbo pickup tube and oil pump is different from the non-turbo. So all of your blocks, you'll notice you have this right here. This is for non-turbo. On my build, I'm going to be using this pickup tube with these studs, and I don't have to modify anything because I'm not using these mounting points. But this is a customer's build, so we're going to go according to what he wants, and we're going to knock it out. So the first step is we're going to start assembling everything on the front of the motor. So now I'm going to show you guys the turbo oil pump. Okay, so this is a turbo oil pump. Okay, it's completely disassembled. It is ready for reassembly. There has been no modifications done to this pump. Okay, so basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys, of course, how to assemble it, which you probably won't have to do. But I'm also going to show you guys how all of this works, which is very important. So, starting with our gears. So, this engine I just showed you came from the machine shop, CW Pence, and it's completely machined, balanced to the T. So, this is a balancer shaft elimination kit, which requires this piece, the shorter chain, and the seal for one of the balancer shafts, which I'll show you later. So basically, these are your oil pump gears, and you see it has a notch there. So the long shaft, and it has a pinion on it, goes in the base. I'm going to add some assembly lube to this, so when it first starts, it's not completely dry, but I'm just trying to give you guys an idea. So this goes down flush, which is sticking out here. There we go. Goes in flush like that, right? Then this gear, which also has a mark on it, goes in like so. Now, before you lay this gear down, you do have to put these in time, which are right about there, right? Then you match your dot here. Alrighty. Then it goes in like so. Alright, hold on a second. Let me push these back down. There we go. And there we go. Alright, so it's in sync, just like that. So every time it goes around, it's always going to be mesh. Okay, so now if we look at the galleys, right, this is the pickup tube area. And when you put in the pickup tube, it comes with a O-ring, which, you know, a lot of people, you know, try to reuse, which is not a good idea. You want to replace that because they do shrink because of the heat. And if you're sucking air instead of oil here, you're going to blow up your motor. So what a lot of people do is they slide in the original O-ring, and then they put silicone all the way around here. And that actually works if it's the right silicone. Some silicones aren't made to be in oil 24/7 with a vacuum being pulled on it from the opposite side. So definitely see if you can get a hold of the original O-ring. And then here you see the valley that it goes through, and it goes into these two gears, which creates the pressure, right? It goes into here, and then it goes into this area here. Now, I don't know if you ever heard the phrase, you know, shim the oil pump, right? Well, I'm gonna show you what that is, what it means, and how you do it, and what this whole component here is. This is very important. So basically, if you look here, right, we have a, looks to be like a plunger, a spring for pressure, and it threads on and locks, right? So if you look in this valley, it goes in through here, right? And that's a part of this assembly. This assembly feeds the engine. Okay, so on the opposite side of this hole, which would be this plate, this goes to your crankshaft. So in order to regulate pressure, just like a wastegate would, you have a spring-loaded contraption. So basically what you want to do is once you put that back in, exactly how it sits, so this plunger goes in like this, right? And it goes all the way down to the back. And basically what happens is when the oil pump reaches too much pressure, it bleeds off from here, right? You see the valve there? When I take it out, okay, now it's gone. So basically it bleeds out from here and the opposing side. So basically, just like a wastegate, if you have a 7-pound spring, you're only going to hold that 7 pounds. So for the Starion, which this is a weak point, your oil pressure should not be so low, especially at idle, So when they say shim it, what you're doing is you're shimming the spring. So on the older wastegates, they had a screw on the top to put tension on the spring. And you're pretty much doing the same thing. So what you want to do is you want to put a washer on the inside of here. So when you tighten this down, because it is threaded, it's going to put pressure onto this spring, more so than factory, obviously, because you're compressing it. So let's say your oil pressure will go from 60 psi max at full throttle to 80 to possibly even 90, depending on how many shims you put in here. Okay, and the reason for even doing this is maintaining proper oil pressure on the main bearing so they do not touch and throw a rod bearing. And oil pressure obviously keeps them apart. And because of our weird bore to stroke ratio, it's very common to thrash out the bottom bearings. I've done it a couple times. Many people have done it. That's like 99% of people, big reason for swapping. So to eliminate that, raise the oil pressure. Okay. I'm going to be doing that to this particular engine. So he should definitely get around 90 psi, almost 100 at full tilt. So there'll never be an issue with, old oil sitting on the main bearings or anything like that. So we're going to do that. This engine's going to see very high horsepower. So should be past 500 and all of that other stuff. So we'll see. The preventative measures is shimming that piece so you reach a higher oil pressure. So after that, right, we have this part complete. So we take this, turn it this way, and it goes in like so. We're not going to shut this down yet because we definitely didn't lubricate anything in there. But I'm doing this just so you guys can see what needs to be done. I mean, you can use oil, but I'm going to use something with a little bit more protection, especially for initial startup. So assembly lube, I use Lucas. It's actually red, works very well to assemble that. Now, there are two different gaskets, okay? One's for turbo, one's for non-turbo. Now, just like I previously told you, I'm going to be running non-turbo on my setup. So I happen to have a non-turbo gasket, which looks like this. All right, let's lay this down on top of here. Alrighty, there we go. So now you can see what it's blocking and what it's leaving open. So the feed is always open, all of these, but the turbo one is more closed on the inside loop. On the block, there's valleys that oil flows, and a lot of it is blocked off. So you could see the difference here. So this one's open and there's a closed one. I'm going to insert a photo right now. So if you look at the photo, you can see the non-turbo and the turbo. And I just so happen to have a non-turbo one here. So let me show you guys that side by side. All right, here she is. Turn it over to the back. Okay, excellent. So now, if you look, you'll see the difference is, okay, so here, this valley is closed. And that is because this is the pickup area. The pickup area on the turbo is here. The pickup area on this one is from the block, which picks up from that center portion that has the 3 holes. So that requires a different pickup tube, which I do have. It's in a pile of junk somewhere, I'll find that later. But that's the only differences between the immediate differences between the turbo and non-turbo. Pickup, pickup. So this one is going to have that as the pickup area, which to me is better. You don't have to worry about anything really going wrong with the pickup setup like that on this one. It's a possibility that the spring could be a different spring rate as opposed to the turbo. The turbo is definitely stiffer. And even if it does have the same spring, the gears are not too far off. So some people would think that this one's bigger because it's turbo or whatever. No, they're identical. So basically, only thing that changes, as you can see the valley down there, is the back plate and this pickup area. So anyway, moving on, let me take this out because the non-turbo one is actually the same material as this one, which is aluminum. This one is iron. This is a special one I got from Millings. So this one is actually able to handle a higher PSI than the turbo one because of what it's made out of. Not saying that this one would shatter or anything like that at high PSI, but this would definitely be more reliable and less prone to failing. So I've seen the cheaper ones of the non-turbo go for like 30 bucks. This one's $100, FYI. So anyway, moving on. So basically, this customer is going to have a daily driven beast. So anyway, so more on the assembly of this unit here, which again, I'm not going to push it all the way down on these pins because I have to install some assembly lube. So after that, you install this piece, which are shims. Raise that oil pressure. That's key. They do it on Honda Civics. They do it on 1JZ Supras. They raise that oil pressure. I'd say 80% cars have this on it. Whether it be a Mirage, which does have this on it, whether it be a Supra or a Civic, they all have this. You have to regulate that oil pressure. So anyway, then this gear goes onto here, and because you eliminated the balancer shaft, you don't have to pay attention to this mark anymore. As long as this thing is on here, you have your bolt, which is this one here, locks that down. That's going to be cake work. And then at the back of this one, when you get your balancer shaft elimination kit, at the back of this is supposed to be a balancer shaft. There's two, one behind the oil pump and then one on the upper part of the block. So this goes to the back. So you slide this into the back. Let me do that real quick for you. All right, that's slid in the back. And then this screws in. Okay. Then, of course, all of this stuff would be screwed in. So let's just imagine, right, that this is all together, torque down, which the torque specs are, I believe, 15 foot-pounds for each of these, 15 to 19 foot-pounds for these screws here. And because the gears are together, if you turn this one, the other one's going to turn the opposite way. So I would suggest using an impact gun, and then get you some torque wrenches on there, finish that up. But yeah, so once that's on there, you will have this guide for the shorter chain, all of your screws, gasket on the back side of this piece, which is missing pretty much a piece of rubber that goes inside of here. So basically it doesn't have to fill up with oil or as much oil to get the spring tension in here. And that goes in here. This is for your timing chain right there. And that pushes on the timing chain, you know, with oil pressure, so it's a lot stiffer. And boom, that is it. So this is the turbo oil pump, and this is going to be assembled complete, ready to go. And now you guys know how one of these work. So I hope you guys enjoyed. That's, you know, just the beginning of a nice long process. But next we're going to continue to install that, including other miscellaneous things, and get it done. So join me for the next episode and we'll finish up.